I'll make this quick at the start, because if I drag it out, you'll think I'm exaggerating. I'm not. I live alone in a small 2-story house at the edge of town. A quiet street. The kind where the only sounds at night are the occasional car engine or the low hiss of crickets in the grass. Nothing ever happens here, until last week. And now I can't stop watching that damn CCTV footage. It was supposed to make me feel safe. The camera above my front door was just a precaution. I travel for work sometimes, and I wanted to check on deliveries or see if kids were messing around outside. That's all it was, just a set of eyes when mine couldn't be there. But the recording from Thursday night, it caught something I still don't have words for. Something I shouldn't have seen. Do you want to know the worst part? It crawled inside. That night had been normal enough. I came home from the grocery store, dropped a bag of cheap microwave dinners on the counter, cracked a beer, and turned on the TV. Nothing memorable, nothing to make you think this is the night everything changes. The first odd thing was the knocking. Not loud, just irregular. Tap, pause, tap. It was coming from the window near the kitchen sink. And when I looked over, there was no one there. No shadow, no movement. Just my reflection in the glass and the pale beam of the street light outside. I told myself it was a branch in the wind, but there were no trees close enough to touch that glass. Around midnight, I got restless and decided to check the cameras. Usually I scroll through on my phone, fast-forwarding past hours of stillness, just to reassure myself nothing's out there. But when I opened the app, the live feed froze on an image that made my stomach twist. There was something moving at the edge of the street. Not walking, crawling. The street lamp didn't catch much detail. Only the glint of something pale against the blacktop. Too low to be a person. Too deliberate to be an animal. I thought maybe a dog was injured, dragging itself along. That would have made sense. But then it lifted its head. I don't know if you've ever had that moment where your brain tries to make sense of a shape that doesn't fit anything you know, like staring at a shadow that looks human, until you realize the angles are wrong. That's what it felt like. Its head was too long, the limbs bent strangely, almost backward, and the speed. It moved in sharp bursts, stopping, twitching, then crawling forward again with unnatural rhythm. Every instinct in me said, turn off the phone, don't look, just go to bed. But of course, I didn't. I kept watching as it dragged itself closer. By 12:37 a.m., it was in front of my driveway. I swear to you, it paused there like it knew it was being watched. Its head tilted toward the camera, though I couldn't make out a face. Just an absence where a face should have been. And then, this is the part that makes me sick. It started climbing. Not onto the car, not onto the porch. It scaled the air like a spider, clawing at nothing, pulling itself straight up the invisible space in front of the lens. And the closer it got, the more the feed glitched. Static cut across the image. Lines flickered, scrambled. At 12:38, the screen went black. When it came back, the timestamp read 12:39, and the porch light was swaying. The camera angle shook slightly, like something had pressed against it, and the door below it, my door, was open. That's where the footage ends. At least, that's all the app showed me at first. A cut. No sound, no continuation. Just a missing minute and an open door. I remember staring at my phone, waiting for the next frame to load. My house was locked. I never leave it open. And I hadn't heard anything. No door creak, no wind. I set the phone down, walked slowly to the front door, and checked it myself. Closed, locked. I tried to laugh it off. Some kind of recording error. A bug in the system. Cameras aren't perfect. They freeze, they skip, but the longer I stood there, the less I believed that. Because when I leaned down to check the bottom edge of the door, I saw something. A faint trail across the threshold. Thin streaks, like something wet had been dragged inside. I should have turned around then, should have walked out, locked the door behind me, and called someone. Anyone. But you never think straight in the moment, do you? You tell yourself it's nothing, because the alternative is impossible. So I shut off the lights, climbed the stairs, and lay in bed with the glow of my phone lighting up my face. The video replayed over and over. I kept pausing it, zooming in on the shape as it crawled closer, trying to convince myself it was just a trick of shadows. But each time I paused, I saw more detail. The joints bending wrong. The way its limbs seemed to split in two when it pushed forward. The strange glisten of its skin under the streetlight. And I swear, no matter where I paused it, the head was always angled just slightly toward the camera, toward me. It's 3 a.m. now as I tell you this. I haven't gone back to sleep. The house is silent, but I keep hearing little noises. A faint shift of weight on the stairs. The whisper of air moving through the hall. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe exhaustion is messing with me. But I know what the footage showed. Something crawled inside. And if I'm right, it never left. The next morning, I told myself it had to be a dream. I even convinced myself for about 10 minutes that I'd imagined the whole recording until I opened the app again. The footage was still there, every second of it. The crawling thing dragging itself closer, the static when it climbed, and the door swinging open. It hadn't vanished overnight. It wasn't a dream, and that trail at the bottom of the door, it was still there too. Only now, it had dried into faint, dark streaks. I crouched and touched it with the edge of my fingernail. It flaked like old paint, brittle and reddish brown. Blood was my first thought, but when I sniffed it, there was no coppery tang, just a faint, sour odor, almost chemical. It didn't belong in my house. The problem is, once you've seen something like that, you can't make yourself forget. I went through the motions of my morning. Coffee, shower, scrolling aimlessly on my phone, but everything felt off. Every creak of the floorboards made me flinch. And then came the first contradiction. Because when I checked the front door again around noon, the streaks were gone, completely. The threshold was spotless, not even dust. Now, either I'd imagined it, and maybe you think I had, or someone came into my locked house while I was upstairs and cleaned it. I don't know which thought chilled me more. I tried to act normal the rest of the day, worked on a report for my job, cooked dinner, turned on the TV. But my eyes kept drifting to the shadows in the hallway, the dark gap under the stairs. When night came, I set my phone on the table and forced myself not to check the feed. I told myself, don't give it power, don't look for it. But at 12:14 a.m., curiosity beat reason. I opened the app, and I swear to you, my heart nearly stopped. There was nothing outside. The street was empty, but on the feed, I could see the porch light faintly, swaying again. Like something had brushed past it, I held my breath and kept watching. For almost 20 minutes, nothing happened. Just silence, an empty frame, the faint static hum that comes through at night. I was about to put the phone down when the audio spiked. Yes, audio. My system doesn't have a mic, it's video only. But through the feed, I heard it. A low, scraping drag, like fingernails against wood. And it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the hallway behind me, I spun around so fast the chair nearly toppled. The hall was dark, but I thought I saw movement, just a flutter, like something pulling back into shadow. The sound stopped. I crept forward, phone clutched tight in my hand, its glow barely enough to see by. Step by step, I passed the coat rack, the picture frame, the closet door. Each step felt like I was walking into a tunnel that kept stretching longer the more I moved. I stopped at the base of the stairs, listening so hard my ears hurt. Nothing. Just silence, but the silence felt heavy, like something was holding its breath with me. That was the first night I started doubting my sanity, because when I went back to the table and checked the feed again, the audio was gone. The system had no record of it, just an empty street. I'd hardly slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought I heard it again, that dragging scrape, always faint, always behind me. You ever feel watched in your own house? Not when someone's actually there, but when the air itself feels like it's pressing against you, aware of you. That's how it felt. Every corner held weight. Every dark space waited. By the third day, I thought I could handle it by being logical. I checked every lock. I searched the house from attic to basement. I even pulled open the crawl space hatch with a flashlight. Nothing. Clean. Empty. But when I came back up, I found the living room window wide open. I know I closed it. I know I did. The curtains stirred faintly, though there was no breeze outside. And right on the sill, pressed against the wood, were marks. 3 long grooves, deep enough to splinter, like claws. I shut it immediately, double-latched it, even shoved a chair against it, but it didn't help. The thought kept circling in my head. If it wanted in, it didn't need the window. It already knew how to get inside. That night, I forced myself not to look at the cameras. I couldn't stand seeing it again. Instead, I turned every light on in the house and sat awake in the living room, TV volume low, trying to drown out the dread. At 2:11 a.m., the power cut out. The house went black. You don't know darkness until you're in a house you thought was safe, and suddenly, every corner is pitch. I couldn't see the couch beneath me, couldn't see my own hands. The silence swallowed everything. The hum of the fridge, the buzz of the lamps. Then, in the dead quiet, came the sound. Not scraping this time, not knocking, breathing, slow, deep, wet. And it wasn't upstairs or outside or in another room. It was right behind the couch. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I sat there, body locked, every nerve screaming to run, but my legs refusing to move. The breathing stayed steady, close, too close. Finally, I forced myself to act. I fumbled for my phone, the screen lighting up my face in a pale glow. I turned on the camera app and angled it over my shoulder, too terrified to look with my own eyes. For a split second, the lens caught something. A figure crouched low, limbs bent backward, head cocked toward me. And then the screen froze. The frozen frame glared back at me from my phone screen, grainy, washed out, but there, the thing crouched inches behind me. I don't know how long I stared. My lungs burned before I realized I hadn't been breathing. When I finally turned, slow, like my neck was made of, rusted hinges, nothing was there. The room was empty. I swung the phone flashlight across every corner, every angle. Couch, wall, carpet, nothing, just silence, thick and endless. But when I looked down again, the frame was still on the phone. still frozen. The crouched figure burned into the pixels, like proof I didn't want. I shut the phone off, hard, pressed the button until the screen went black, like I could erase the thing by, cutting the power. Then I sat in the dark for what felt like hours, listening, waiting. The breathing had stopped, but every muscle in my body was knotted, ready to bolt. Eventually, the power clicked back on. Lights flared. The fridge hummed alive. I nearly cried with relief. But the relief didn't last, because when I finally dared to check the door again, I found the deadbolt unlatched, and I hadn't touched it. That day at work, I couldn't focus. I typed 3 emails, deleted them, stared at blank screens. My coworkers probably thought I was hungover. I didn't tell them the truth. How could I? You can't just say, hey, my security cameras are catching something inhuman crawling around my porch. By evening, I decided I'd lost it. Stress, maybe, sleep deprivation. I even thought about booking a doctor's appointment, getting checked for whatever. Condition makes people hallucinate. But then I remembered the grooves in the window, the trail on the threshold, the frame frozen on my phone. Hallucinations don't leave marks you can touch. That night, I made a plan. Stay awake, lights on, phone ready. Catch it on camera again, but this time, don't freeze. Don't look away. I brewed coffee, sat up on the couch, and pulled a blanket around me. Midnight came. Then 1 a.m., then 2. The house creaked, but nothing happened. By 3, I was nodding off. My head jerked back, heavy with exhaustion. I promised myself I'd just rest my eyes for a second. Just one. I must have blacked out, because the next thing I knew, the phone alarm shrilled in my ear, and the blanket was gone. At first, I thought I'd kicked it off in my sleep, but the blanket wasn't on the floor or the couch or anywhere near me. It was hanging over the banister at the top of the stairs. I froze, staring up at it. The air was still. No sound, no movement. Just that heavy weight in my chest again. The sense of being watched. I crept forward, each step slow, deliberate, until I reached the base of the stairs. My hand shook as I gripped the rail. The blanket shifted, just slightly, as though a hand had brushed it. I bolted back, heart slamming so hard it hurt. I nearly ran out the front door, but I couldn't make myself cross the threshold, not with the memory of that open door on the camera. Instead, I grabbed a kitchen knife and sat there, every nerve stretched tight, eyes locked on the stairs. Minutes crawled by, then an hour. By dawn, the blanket was still there, perfectly still. But when I finally gathered the courage to climb up and snatch it away, I found something tucked beneath it. A single, pale finger bone, clean, stripped, and small, like it belonged to a child. I don't know how long I stared at it before I dropped it. My skin crawled at the thought of touching it with bare hands. It clattered against the wood floor, too light, too hollow. That was the moment I accepted this wasn't just in my head. Something was in my house, and it wanted me to know. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. Every time my eyelids drooped, I felt a shift in the air, like the weight of the house changed when I wasn't watching. I started hearing things in patterns, a knock, knock, knock from the pipes, followed by a scrape followed by silence. Always at night, always when the world outside was dead quiet. By the 5th day, exhaustion caught up. My vision blurred, My thoughts tangled. I stopped going to work. Just sat at the kitchen table with the knife beside me and the phone feed open. Eyes glued to the screen. The crawling shape didn't return outside. The steps stopped just outside the doorway. I couldn't bring myself to look directly. Instead, I angled my phone camera toward the doorframe, thumb trembling as I hit record. The screen showed nothing, just the empty hall, but the sound of breathing filled the room again, closer this time, deep and wet, like lungs full of water. And then, so faint I almost thought I imagined it, came a whisper. "Let me in." I dropped the phone. The clatter echoed like a gunshot. My heart thrashed against my ribs. When I looked up, the doorway was still empty, but the whisper hadn't stopped. It was circling me now, seeping from the walls, curling into my ears. "Let me in, let me in." I clapped my hands over my ears, squeezed my eyes shut, but the voice pressed through skin and bone. I felt it vibrating in my skull, and the longer I resisted, the angrier it got. By the end, the whisper wasn't even words anymore. It was a growl. That growl wasn't like any animal I've heard. It was layered, ragged, like something trying to force itself into the shape of a voice and failing. My hand shook so hard, I thought the knife would slip from my grip. Then it stopped. The silence after was worse. I opened my eyes. The kitchen was empty, still bathed in the weak glow of the overhead light. The doorway was clear. My phone lay face down on the tile, screen cracked, camera still faintly humming. For a long time, I didn't move. I just sat there, every nerve stretched thin, waiting for the next sound. But nothing came. Not that night, not until the following evening. I tried to get out of the house the next day, convinced myself that leaving, even for a few hours, might reset my head. I went to a diner off the highway, ordered pancakes I barely touched, and stared at people laughing in booths around me. They looked normal, alive, unbothered. And for a moment I wondered, what if it only follows me here? What if it's inside me somehow, and these people are already in danger just being near me? That thought ruined the illusion of safety. I paid, left half the food cold on the plate, and drove back home with my chest hollowed out by dread. The house greeted me with silence, too silent, like it had been waiting. That night, I set up every light I owned, lamps, flashlights, even the glow from the oven clock. I wanted no shadows, but the house doesn't care about light. Shadows made themselves. Around 1 a.m., I noticed something strange on the CCTV feed. Not movement, absence. The feed glitched, but instead of static, whole chunks of the frame went black. Perfect squares of nothing, eating the image in pieces. Street, driveway, porch, each swallowed until only the door remained visible. Then the door itself disappeared. The entire frame turned black. And in that black, for a split second, I saw 2 points of pale light. Not reflections, not lens flare. Eyes. The phone screen went white hot. I dropped it, burned my palm. When I picked it back up, the feed had returned to normal, empty street, porch light glowing steady. But the smell had changed. A damp, moldy reek crept through the air, thick enough I gagged. I traced it to the hall closet. Every instinct screamed, "Don't open it." But my hand was already on the knob before I even realized. Inside, the coats hung limp, boxes stacked on the shelf, ordinary things, except for one detail. Every coat was wet, dripping. Water pooled at the bottom, seeping into the carpet. I stumbled back, heart pounding. None of those coats had been wet earlier. It hadn't rained for days. I touched one, hesitant just with the tip of a finger. Cold, slimy. My skin crawled where it made contact. Then something shifted behind the coats. A soft thump like a weight dropping onto the floor of the closet. I slammed the door shut, shoved a chair against it, and retreated to the kitchen. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I woke on the table at dawn, the closet was open. The coats were bone dry. The chair had been dragged neatly back into place. By then, I stopped pretending this was stress or exhaustion. I started recording everything. Not just the CCTV, my phone camera, audio notes, anything. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. That evening, I set my phone to record as I moved, room to room. Nothing unusual, until I reviewed the footage. In the background of one clip, while I filmed the stairwell, something leaned around the corner at the top. Just for a second. A pale, narrow face. Too long, too smooth. No eyes, no mouth. Just the hint of a face peering down at me. And when I'd filmed it, I hadn't seen a thing. That was the moment I stopped trusting my own senses. If I could only see it through cameras, then what else had it done that I hadn't noticed? How many nights had it watched me without leaving a trace? I barely ate, barely drank. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like a stranger. Sunken cheeks, bloodshot eyes, skin stretched tight. By midnight, I was shaking from hunger and fear. Still, I couldn't bring myself to leave, because some part of me believed if I left, it would follow. And maybe it would be worse out there. The house groaned around 2 a.m., like something heavy shifted in the attic. I grabbed the knife again, foam flashlight cutting a trembling beam, and climbed the ladder up. The attic was dust, boxes, insulation. Ordinary, except for the crawl marks. 4 deep grooves, like talons, tracked across the insulation. A trail leading to the far corner. I followed them, each step sinking soft into the dust. The trail ended at the wall, and in that wall, where there had never been anything before, was a hatch. A small, square door I swear wasn't there the last time I'd been in the attic. The hatch rattled, just once, then again, louder. Something was on the other side. My hand hovered over the latch, trembling so badly I could hardly keep the beam steady. My throat was so dry I couldn't swallow. And then I heard it. That same whisper from before, curling out through the cracks, low and patient. Let me in. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a box, heart hammering. The hatch rattled again, harder, and the whisper broke into a hiss. Let me in. The beam flickered. The air grew thick, wet, heavy with that mold stench. I dropped the phone. The light spun across the floor, landed on the hatch, just as it creaked open an inch. The crack in the hatch revealed nothing but blackness. No attic insulation, no wooden frame, just a void, like the space beyond wasn't part of the house at all. And then, from that void, came the sound, a dragging, slow, wet, deliberate, something crawling closer. I snatched the phone off the floor, fumbling to switch on the flashlight, but the beam cut only a few inches into the darkness. It didn't light walls. It didn't light anything. The hatch had opened onto somewhere else. And in that somewhere, something moved. I backed away, knife trembling in my hand, whispering to myself that I was dreaming, that it wasn't real. But the sound followed, growing louder. The hatch pushed wider, inch by inch, until it gaped like a mouth. Then, silence. I stood frozen, every nerve waiting for it to lunge. Instead, something slid out. A hand. Long, pale, fingers bending too far, too many joints. It gripped the edge of the hatch and pulled. Another hand followed. Then the crown of its head, smooth and glistening, forcing itself through the opening. I bolted. I don't remember clambering down the ladder. My feet hit the hallway floor so hard I almost collapsed. The hatch slammed shut behind me with a hollow bang that shook the ceiling. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time the house groaned, I thought it was the hatch opening again. Every draft of air felt like breath on my neck. When the sun rose, I almost cried with relief. But relief doesn't last in this house, because when I checked the attic later that morning, the hatch was gone. No door, no seam, just smooth insulation where it had been. I should have left then. I should have grabbed my keys and driven until the gas ran out. But something in me had shifted. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was obsession. I needed to understand what was happening. That afternoon, I pulled up every recording from my CCTV cameras, every clip from the past week. Most were empty, but in a few, when the lens caught the porch at just the right angle, I saw it. Reflections, not of me, not of any visitor, but faint, wrong shapes in the glass of my front door. Long heads, crawling limbs, watching, always watching. The recordings didn't stop there. On Wednesday's footage, the front door swung open again at 12:38 a.m., same as the first night. But this time, the camera kept rolling. And what it showed, the thing didn't just crawl inside, it stood. Slowly, painfully, joints twisting into place, spine cracking like dry wood. Its head swiveled toward the lens, and though the picture blurred, I saw it. No eyes, no mouth, just a stretched, pale mask where a face should be. And then it walked into my house like it belonged here. I slammed the laptop shut. My chest felt like it was caving in. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't stress. It was real, and it had been walking these rooms for days. That night, I locked myself in the bedroom, shoved a dresser against the door, knife under my pillow. I told myself I'd stay put until morning, no matter what happened. But rules don't mean anything here. At 3:12 a.m., the dresser slid, not toppled, not shoved, slid, inch by inch, across the floor. Though I wasn't touching it, the doorknob rattled, and from the other side came the voice again. Let me in. I pressed my back against the wall, knife gripped tight, whispering prayers I barely remembered. The knob twisted harder, the dresser scraped, then silence. I held my breath, ears ringing, and then, so softly I almost thought it came from inside my own skull, the voice whispered again. But not from the door, from the closet behind me. I spun, nearly dropping the knife. The closet door was shut, but the whisper seeped through the wood, low and urgent. Let me in. I pressed the knife tip against the door, shaking so hard it left a small nick in the paint. The voice chuckled. I swear to you, it chuckled. And then, without warning, the door burst open. I lunged back, knife raised, expecting it to come pouring out. But the closet was empty, just clothes, shoes, boxes stacked neatly. Except every single piece of clothing hung soaking wet, dripping. The same reek of mold and rot filled the room, clinging to my throat. My skin crawled as droplets pattered onto the carpet, dark stains spreading around my feet. And then, From the darkness between two coats, a hand reached out. Long, pale, fingers bent wrong. It brushed my arm. I screamed. When I came to, I was on the floor, knife gone, closet shut tight like it had never opened. My clothes were dry again. The smell was gone, but the skin on my arm burned. When I rolled up the sleeve, I saw it. A mark. Not a cut, not a bruise. A handprint. Long, pale, burned into my flesh like it had seared itself there. That's when I understood. It wasn't trying to get in. It already was. I stared at that handprint until my vision blurred. The skin wasn't just burned, it was warped, almost branded. The longer I looked, the more I swore the ridges and lines shifted, twitching like something alive. I wrapped my arm in a towel, desperate not to see it anymore. But hiding it didn't help. I could feel it. A constant heat under the skin, pulsing like another heartbeat. That day, I didn't leave the bedroom. I kept the dresser against the door, curtains drawn, knife clutched so tight my hand cramped. I told myself I'd stay put, ride it out, but the house doesn't let you ride anything out. By evening, the scratching began. At first, faint, a tick, tick, tick along the walls. Then louder, spreading, scratches in every corner, circling me. I pressed my back to the wall, whispering, "It's not real, it's not real." But the sound grew sharper, closer, until it seemed the walls themselves were peeling. I grabbed the phone with my free hand, opened the camera, and aimed it at the ceiling. Through the lens, I saw them. Hands, dozens of them. Pale, jointed wrong, clawing from inside the plaster, pressing against it, stretching the surface like wet paper. When I lowered the phone, the ceiling was smooth, but the scratching never stopped. By midnight, exhaustion forced me into half sleep, knife still under my pillow. That's when the dream came. I was standing outside my house, staring at the front door. The CCTV camera above it swayed, clicking, focusing. The porch light burned too bright, drowning everything in pale glare. And then the door opened. I saw myself inside. Not sleeping, not resting, just standing in the hallway, head tilted back, mouth wide open in a silent scream. Behind me, behind him, the crawling shape rose tall, folding itself upward like a spider, its faceless head pressed close, hands resting gently on my shoulders. I woke up, gasping. The knife was gone. I tore through the sheets, the floor, the corners of the room. Nothing. It had vanished, like I'd never held it. That's when I saw the door. The dresser was gone, just gone, and the door stood wide open. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Something waited in the hall. I couldn't see it, but I knew. The air pressed heavy, thick with damp. The smell of mold rolled in, and then footsteps, slow, careful, coming closer. I slammed the door shut and pressed my weight against it, shaking so hard I could hardly stand. The footsteps stopped on the other side. For a long moment, silence. Then a whisper, so close it felt like lips against the wood. "You're already mine." My knees buckled. I slid down, hands clamped over my ears, eyes shut tight. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. When I finally looked up, the door was closed. The dresser was back in place, knife on the pillow, like nothing had ever happened. That's when I realized what it wanted. It wasn't just trying to scare me, it was wearing me down. Piece by piece, night after night, it was making me part of this house. I tried leaving the next morning, packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and forced myself to the front door. My chest tightened with every step. The closer I got, the heavier the air became. My legs shook like I was walking through water. When I put my hand on the doorknob, the heat from my branded arm flared. So sharp, I screamed. The door wouldn't budge. I twisted, shoved, kicked. Nothing. It stayed shut. And then the CCTV camera above the porch whirred. I heard it move, heard the tiny click as it focused. The feed popped up on my phone screen without me touching it. And there I was, framed perfectly, standing inside, smiling. I dropped the phone. My stomach lurched, bile rising. That smile, it wasn't mine. My lips curled too wide, teeth bared too long. When I snatched the phone up again, the feed was normal. Just the empty porch. But I couldn't shake it. Somewhere, maybe on another feed, another angle, there was a version of me smiling. And it wasn't me. That night, I barricaded the bedroom again. Knife in one hand, phone in the other, I sat shaking on the floor. Every so often, I checked the cameras. Nothing, just the street, the porch, the empty dark. Until 2:44 a.m., the feed glitched, stuttering frames, and then I saw myself again. Not on the porch, in the driveway, just standing there, head tilted back, that same too wide smile stretched across my face. And the longer I watched, the closer he came. Each frame cutting forward, jerking closer until he was at the door. The door rattled and the feed went black. I dropped the phone, scrambled back against the wall, knife raised. My chest felt like it would tear open. The door stayed quiet. No sound, no movement. But then, from inside the room, came a laugh. Soft, gentle, right behind me. I spun, knife slashing through the air. Empty. But the laugh didn't stop. It was coming from my own throat. I clamped a hand over my mouth, but the sound kept spilling out. That awful laugh, bubbling from somewhere deeper than my lungs. The more I tried to choke it back, the louder it grew, until the walls seemed to vibrate with it. And then, silence. I gasped for air, throat raw, ears ringing. But the silence wasn't empty. It was listening. I knew, as surely as I know my own name, that something had leaned in close, ear pressed to the dark, waiting for me to speak again. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat on the floor until dawn, phone in one hand, knife in the other, jumping at every creak of the house. At sunrise, I tried the door again. Same thing. Wouldn't move. It wasn't locked. The knob turned freely, but it felt sealed, like the air itself pressed it shut. I tried the windows next. Jammed. I tried smashing one with the knife handle. The glass rippled like water, absorbed the blow, and stayed whole. I was trapped. That's when the heat in my arm flared again. I peeled back the bandage. The burned handprint was changing. The skin was splitting open at the ridges, peeling like old paint, revealing something dark beneath. It wasn't blood, not flesh, just blackness, raw and wet, like tar boiling in the wound. And every time I stared at it too long, I swore I saw fingers moving inside, pressing outward. I staggered to the sink, desperate to wash it, to scrub it clean. The water gushed over my arms, steaming on contact. The blackness writhed, recoiling like it hated the touch. For a second, I thought I'd won. Then the faucet coughed, sputtered, and what poured out wasn't water anymore. Thick, dark, the same tar that seeped from my arm. It filled the sink, splashing against the porcelain, climbing up the drain like it was alive. I backed away, gagging at the smell. Rot and smoke and something sweet, like spoiled fruit. The tar spread across the counter, dripping down in ropes that smacked the tile. And as it pooled, it started to rise, not like liquid, like a body. I ran through the hallway, up the stairs, my footsteps pounding, the air so heavy I could barely drag it into my lungs. I didn't look back, didn't dare. I slammed into the attic door, yanked it open, scrambled up. The ladder creaked, groaned, but I hauled it up behind me, chest heaving. The attic was low, cramped, suffocating. Dust hung in the air like fog. I pressed myself into the corner, knife still clutched, shaking so bad I almost dropped it. Below me, in the walls of the house, I heard it moving. The wet slap of tar dragging itself along, the sharp crack of wood giving way. A crawling, climbing, endless sound as if the whole house was filling with it, and then silence again, which was worse. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with trembling hands. A new notification, CCTV motion alert. I tapped it. The feed opened. The camera showed the attic from the corner I sat in. I stared at the screen, heart stuttering. The image was too dark to see clearly, just shadows, shapes. But then the angle tilted, slowly, as if the camera itself were turning toward me. The view sharpened, and there I was, sitting in the corner, knife in hand, staring at my own phone. Except the me on the screen wasn't shaking, wasn't terrified. He smiled. I threw the phone across the attic. It clattered into the dark. And something clattered back. Not the phone. Something heavier. Metal scraping wood. I froze. Breath caught in my throat. Then a voice spoke from the shadows. "You don't need that knife anymore." It was my voice. I bolted, crawled through insulation, over beams, choking on dust, trying to find the vent hatch that led outside. My shoulders scraped wood, my knees bled. But I didn't care. I had to get out. Everywhere I crawled, the air grew hotter. My branded arm throbbed like it would split open. Finally, I saw it, the vent, faint daylight bleeding through the slats. I shoved toward it, fingers clawing. I could almost feel the outside air, almost breathe it, but the light shifted. A shadow passed across it, and then another hand pressed against the slats from outside. Pale, long, fingers bending the wrong way, waiting. I backed away, shaking my head, whispering, "No, no, no." The wood beneath me groaned, split, and suddenly, I wasn't crawling alone. The attic floor bulged, swelled, and then split open as something surged up from below. Black tar, hands, faces, all writhing together, climbing toward me. I stumbled backward until my shoulders hit the far wall, knife raised, but useless against the sheer size of it. The thing filled the attic, reaching, grabbing, pressing close, and as it leaned in, faces formed from the tar. Dozens, hundreds, every one of them was me. Each face whispered, overlapping, hissing through broken smiles. "You're already inside. You've always been here. You'll never leave." The sound burrowed into my skull, into my chest, until I couldn't tell if I was screaming or they were. The knife slipped from my hand, fell into the tar, and the tar welcomed it, swallowed it whole. I shut my eyes, pressing myself into the wall, praying for it to end, for the house to collapse, for fire to take me, for anything but this endless, suffocating dark. When I opened them again, the attic was empty. Just wood, dust, silence, knife back in my hand, phone buzzing on the floor. Like nothing had happened, but the heat in my arm burned worse than ever. And when I looked at the brand, I saw it clearly for the first time. It wasn't a handprint anymore. The blinking lens in my skin wouldn't stop. Every time it pulsed, I felt a shudder go off deep inside me, like my heart wasn't beating anymore, like it was recording. I stumbled down from the attic, legs barely holding me. The house was dead quiet. Too quiet. Every step I took echoed as if someone followed just behind me, heel for heel. In the living room, the TV flickered on. I hadn't touched it. The screen glowed white, humming faintly. And then the image sharpened. Me. Not just me from earlier. Me now. Standing in the living room, staring at the TV. I looked behind me. Nothing. Looked back. On the screen, my double raised its hand. The one with the brand. Slowly. Deliberately. And then the me on the screen reached out. And the screen bulged, like glass bending outward, stretching as his fingers pushed through. I didn't think. I ran, straight for the front door, screaming, pounding with everything I had left. The wood splintered. The air itself fought me, thick and heavy, but I forced it. The door cracked open, just a sliver. I could see daylight, taste fresh air, but something yanked me back. Hands, dozens of them, all black, sticky, tar-soaked. They dragged me away from the light, deeper into the house. I clawed the floor, left bloody streaks across the wood. My throat tore from screaming. The door slammed shut on its own. When I came to, I was back in the kitchen. The sink, the knife, the bandage, everything in its place, like it had reset. But the tar still dripped. The heat in my arm still burned. And the cameras, God, the cameras, they all clicked on at once. Every feed showed me. Not one version, hundreds. Each me sitting in a different room, a different corner, a different pose. Some crying, some laughing, some just staring at the screen, smiling wide. And one by one, they turned their heads toward me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The phone buzzed again, a new alert. Motion detected, basement camera. I never had a basement camera. The feed opened anyway. It was pitch black, but the infrared caught movement. Something standing there in the dark, tall, thin, still. Then it moved, closer, step by step, until its face filled the frame. It was mine. Except the eyes weren't eyes, just empty black lenses, unblinking, recording everything. The house trembled. Walls groaned. The tar surged up from the floorboards, climbing like roots, wrapping the furniture, the walls, the ceiling. And through it all, one sound rose above the rest. Click, 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 like shutters snapping. Thousands of them going off all at once, capturing every angle of me. My body convulsed. My branded arms split wide open. The skin peeled back, and beneath it was no flesh, no blood, just another lens, larger this time, perfectly round. I fell to my knees, clutching it, screaming as the world bent around me. The feeds shifted again. Now I wasn't looking at the cameras, I was looking through them. Every screen showed my eyes, my view, my hands trembling, knife glinting. The way I crawled, the way I begged. I wasn't the watcher anymore. I was the one being watched. And worse, someone else was holding the camera. Someone else was moving me. The tar surged higher, swallowing the ceiling. The house vanished into pure black. And in that black, faces bloomed like flowers. Not strangers, not monsters. People I knew. My grandfather, neighbors, friends I hadn't seen in years. Each one branded, each one carrying a lens in their skin. Each one whispering the same word, smile. I tried to fight, tried to cut the lens out of my arm with the knife. But the blade snapped like glass, useless against whatever I had become. The voices grew louder. Smile, smile. The tar wrapped around my throat, tilted my head back, and my lips split open into a grin I couldn't stop. Wide, too wide, until my cheeks tore. The cameras all went dark at once. Total silence. I don't know how long I lay there. Minutes, hours, maybe days. When I finally stood, the house was clean. No tar, no damage, just stillness. But the brand was gone from my arm. In its place was smooth skin, a faint circle, like scar tissue. And when I pressed it, I heard a shutter click. I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do. I don't know if this is real or if I'm trapped inside something else's feed. Maybe you'll read this and think I'm crazy. Maybe you'll laugh. But if your phone buzzes, if you get a motion alert, and the camera shows someone who looks exactly like you, don't watch it. Don't let it smile. Because once it does, you'll never stop recording. It was a camera. The lens at its center blinked. Recording. ...